What's good, Internet? My name is attackslug. This is my SmackDown reactions for the week of August the 9th, 2016. If you happen to hear any noise in the background, there is lawn care going on. My apologies on that. As always, let me know your thoughts on SmackDown this week. Write down in those comments below, and I will get to my long and rambling, or hopefully short and rambling, thoughts on SmackDown this week. Again, I enjoy the subtle differences between Raw and SmackDown. So the opening of Raw has that recap of what happens. Obviously, Raw is a 3-hour show, whereas SmackDown begins with a cold open, and things happen to set up things in the show. So Randy Orton is backstage, and Del Rio is like, hey, Pero. He didn't say Pero, which is weird. He didn't call Randy Orton a Pero, so, you know, I appreciate that for once. Anyway, SmackDown begins with Bray Wyatt and Eric Rowan coming to the ring to, set up the main event I predicted last week, which would have been the Wyatts versus Ziggler and Ambrose, but he's out there cutting a promo, and then here comes Ambrose to cut his own promo, and then here comes Ziggler, who just wants to fight. He comes in, and this is, a bit of a ruckus here, if you will, and it was actually a nice spot where Bray Wyatt had Dean Ambrose in the Sister Abigail and was going to get super kicked by Ziggler, and then Bray pulls up, so Ziggler super kicks Dean Ambrose. That was pretty cool. And then obviously there's a backstage thing, and we set up our tag team main event. Holla holla, because obviously anyone could have told you at the end of last week that this week's main event would have been a tag team match. Playa. Anyway, our first match of the evening is the American Alpha fighting some jobbers. Like, legitimately a jobber tag team was here to fight American Alpha. And then the rest of the SmackDown tag division comes to the ring. So you got the Ascension, the Vaudevillains, and the Hype Bros. And that's the extent of your SmackDown tag team division, I suppose. So obviously, American Alpha wins this match easily, and then a brawl takes place with all these tag teams. Obviously, we don't have a tag team title yet, but they did say on commentary that it's happening. Like, they had mentioned that previously, that you will get both a tag team title and a women's title at some point on SmackDown. If that means a tournament, who knows? But it's going to happen at some point. We go back to the SmackDown spaceship booth, or whatever the hell that is, with Renee Young and The Miz and Maurice. And this is kind of all you can do to build your Miz and Apollo Crews, not Creed, feud this week, because Apollo Crews went to go to that overseas tour, as did AJ Styles and John Cena. So they're not in the building tonight, but The Miz is, and he's trying to help build this feud for the IC title. Anyway, they got on the tables and kissed, and Renee Young was like all there and being awkward, and it was something. I don't know. It was something. It helped, I guess. Anyway, next up was supposed to be Becky Lynch versus Eva Marie, and I honestly am enjoying what they're doing with Eva Marie, because she came down again. Last week she was injured, and this week she had a wardrobe malfunction and could not compete in the match. Now, as someone who does not want to see Eva Marie wrestle, this is fantastic. They're building her up to these matches and then not actually having the matches. So afterwards, Becky's cutting a promo like, look, I like to fight. I'm Irish. I don't know. And then to answer that challenge, out comes Alexa Bliss, and they have a match, which Alexa Bliss wins, shockingly enough, over Becky Lynch. And then the reason that she won was because you had the classic diva distraction of, oh, someone else is coming out, and their music is playing, and it was Eva Marie. And then Alexa Bliss locks in her finisher and taps out. I think was that a different match? That might have been a different match. Anyway, Alexa Bliss wins this match over Becky Lynch, and it was a post-match Eva Marie promo thing, saying that she promises next week gonna have a match. Anyway, we move on to Randy Orton versus Alberto Del Rio, which is kind of the most SmackDown thing you could possibly be doing. And Randy Orton wins this match only because Del Rio hit him with a chair in his surgically repaired shoulder. So that's a good bit of character work, working towards that SummerSlam pay-per-view. So Randy Orton wins by DQ. Now, I will say in this match, there is one thing we could have hoped for on SmackDown with the shakeup of the commentary teams. You would have thought you would never hear JBL say the word Maggle ever again, because obviously Michael Cole is on Raw now. But he said Maggle again here. He's like, as Maggle would say, vintage Randy Orton. So unfortunately, we're still going to hear JBL say Maggle, and is what it is. Anyway, we get a Rhino and Heath Slater backstage deal, which was pretty funny. Heath Slater now has a free agent t-shirt, which is pretty cool. And Rhino talks about having to appease his constituents as he is in an election thing in Michigan, I believe. And Heath Slater was like, I gotta feed 4 kids, in a pool. And that was some pretty good stuff. Then we have another terrible promo thing for Scooby-Doo with The Miz and Scooby-Doo, where Scooby-Doo steals The Miz's car, and that was, I don't care, can't care, let's move on. We get a Heath Slater versus Rhino match as promised, and if Heath Slater can get the victory, he will get a contract on SmackDown Live, and obviously he loses, Rhino gets the gore, etc., etc. But there is one important thing to mention in this entire match, and that is David Otunga with a bit of contextual history here, saying the reason that Daniel Bryan keeps giving Heath Slater chances is because Daniel Bryan, Heath Slater, and Otunga were all in the original Nexus, and as someone who loves continuity and common sense and, you know, simple stuff like that in wrestling that makes sense, thumbs way up on Otunga for mentioning that bit of little news. That it makes it all make more sense, and I fucking love that. So, after that, Daniel Bryan and Shane were considering giving Heath Slater a contract. But Slater, being Slater, comes in, goes on a rant, says, you know what, I don't need you, fuck you, I'm out. So, he will not be getting a contract for SmackDown still. So Heath Slater, still the greatest free agent in wrestling today, and is now back to his original theme song of being a one-man band, baby. Anyway, moving on. We have Carmella versus Natalya in a women's match. I keep saying divas. There's 10 years. It's hard to get rid of saying divas. Match was okay. I don't know why they still they separated Enzo and Cass from Carmella, and she's still doing kind of the Enzo and Cass type gimmick, but the crowd doesn't care. Like, obviously, Enzo and Cass on Raw, super over. Crowd kind of not giving a shit about Carmella, and she wins this match via submission, which is fine, but when Carmella's doing her submission to Natalya, and Carmella's the one screaming, that's some Kelly shit, come on now. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, we get an AJ Styles John Cena recap deal, and obviously you kind of have to because both AJ and Cena not in the building this evening. Then we're building toward a Baron Corbin and Kalisto feud by having Baron Corbin beating the crap out of Kalisto backstage. It really still makes no sense that you're going to build your Cruiserweight division on Raw and you've got Kalisto on SmackDown. I don't understand that. Anyway, main event of the evening is this match. Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose. How will they coexist versus the Wyatts? And I guess the only thing to mention here really is that Dean Ambrose, you don't need to do a suicide dive in every match, and man, you botched it here. But seriously, this whole crop of guys doesn't need to be doing suicide dives on every show. It cheapens the whole thing, and someone, like all these guys, this whole generation is going to have shortened careers because they keep doing suicide dives and not always hitting them in the way that they should be hitting them. And even when you do, it is still going to give you injuries that's going to just pile up and have a shortened career. So, Ziggler and Ambrose win this match right after that botched suicide dive. Dolph Ziggler gets the super kick on Rowan and pins him and wins the match. But after the match, Ambrose hits Ziggler with the Dirty Deed, and that's kind of how you end your show of this episode of SmackDown. So, honestly, now having been watching SmackDown and Raw every week, having distinct rosters, SmackDown is the easier show to watch. I think that, honestly, and I've been saying this for years, a 2-hour show is a better, more concise wrestling show. 3 hours is great for pay-per-views. 3 hours for Raw every week just feels plodding. Unless you actually have a fresh show for Raw that feels fresh every week, which is really hard to do, yeah, it just feels plodding. And as you've seen on Raw the past 3 weeks, they've just been recycling the same stuff over and over and over. So yeah, I will give it to SmackDown this week. They kind of had a rough start, but I think they're finding their stride in only having to have a 2-hour show each week. So, let me know what you thought. That's going to do it. I'm attackslug. Thanks for watching. I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep these reaction videos, but hey, I'm still having fun. We'll see you next time. And if you have more videos, right here on this channel, and I'm out.